For why the Balkan powder keg ignited World War. Welcome. Today, we turn our attention to the Balkans, a small but historically explosive region in Southeast Europe, often referred to as the powder keg of Europe. At the dawn of the 20th century, this area was a hotbed of ethnic rivalries, clashing nationalisms, and crumbling empires. And it was here, in the complex crossroads of cultures and ambitions, that a single gunshot set the world ablaze. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914 didn't happen in isolation. It was the result of years, decades, of simmering tensions. The Balkans was where the ambitions of old empires collided with the aspirations of rising nations. Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Russia all had vested interests in the region. Meanwhile, newly independent countries like Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece were staking claims and redrawing borders, often at each other's expense. Layered on top of this was a tangled web of alliances between the great powers of Europe, Germany, France, Britain, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. These alliances, originally intended to maintain peace, instead created a domino effect. A conflict between two nations could, and ultimately did, drag in the entire continent. But what made the Balkans the spark and not somewhere else? Why was this region so fragile and so central to the outbreak of a world war? In today's episode, we'll explore how nationalist movements, imperial collapse, and great power rivalries transformed the Balkans into Europe's most dangerous fault line. We'll analyze the deep-seated causes and the international alliances that turned a regional crisis into a global catastrophe. The complex nationalisms of the Balkans was more than just a region, it was a tightly packed mosaic of cultures, religions, and ethnic groups. Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Bulgarians, Albanians, Romanians, Macedonians, Greeks, and others coexisted in a territory where boundaries were often unclear and loyalties frequently overlapped. These communities spoke different languages, practiced various religions, including Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholicism, and Islam, and identified with diverse historical narratives. For centuries, most of the Balkans had been under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, which, though authoritarian, maintained a degree of balance between ethnic groups. But by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Ottoman power was crumbling. As the empire weakened, ethnic groups across the region saw an opportunity, not just to break free from imperial rule, but to define themselves as independent nations. Great powers and alliances in the region. While the Balkans was a deeply divided region internally, its instability also attracted the eyes, and ambitions, of the great powers of Europe. The major empires viewed the Balkans not simply as a troubled region, but as a critical strategic zone. What unfolded in this small corner of Europe was closely tied to their broader global interests, alliances, and fears. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was a sprawling, multi-ethnic monarchy that included Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Slovaks, Croats, Poles, and many Slavs, including Bosnians and Serbs. As Serbian nationalism grew stronger and sought to unite Slavic peoples under a Greater Serbia, Austria-Hungary saw this as an existential threat. If the Slavic populations within its borders were inspired to rebel or secede, it could tear the empire apart from the inside. To solidify its control and assert dominance, Austria-Hungary formally annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1908, territories it had administered but not fully claimed. This move was a direct provocation to Serbia, which viewed Bosnia, with its large Serb population, as part of its natural national territory. The annexation enraged Serbian nationalists and deepened hostility between the two nations. In contrast, Russia positioned itself as the defender of the Slavs. Motivated by both ideological and geopolitical interests, Russia embraced Pan-Slavism, the belief that Slavic peoples should unite under common cultural and political leadership. Supporting Serbia, the largest independent Slavic state in the Balkans, allowed Russia to extend its influence in the region while countering Austro-Hungarian expansion. Russia also sought greater access to the Mediterranean, which made Balkan ports crucial to its naval strategy. Protecting Serbia wasn't just about brotherhood, it was also a path to power. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary through the Triple Alliance, played a more cautious but ultimately decisive role. While Germany had fewer direct interests in the Balkans, it was determined to preserve Austria-Hungary as a stable partner and counterbalance to the Triple Entente, the alliance of France, Russia, and Britain. Germany offered Austria-Hungary what became known as the blank check, unconditional support in its confrontation with Serbia. This promise of loyalty emboldened Vienna to act aggressively, knowing it had the backing of Europe's most powerful military machine. France had long-standing tensions with Germany after the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71 and viewed the growing strength of the Triple Alliance with alarm. It was firmly aligned with Russia and had a defensive interest in containing German influence. Britain, too, although more cautious, was increasingly concerned about maintaining the European balance of power. While not directly invested in Balkan politics, Britain's alliance with France and Russia through the Triple Entente meant it would be drawn into any broader conflict. This system of alliances, meant to preserve peace through deterrence, became a trap. Once one domino fell, the rest followed. A local conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia could, and ultimately did, pull in Russia, Germany, France, and Britain, turning a Balkan quarrel into a world war. In this fragile setup, diplomacy was brittle, and trust was low. The Balkans may have lit the match, but it was Europe's alliance system that spread the flames. The assassination that sparked the war on the morning of June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie arrived in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a territory recently annexed by Austria-Hungary, and still deeply contested by Serbian nationalists. Their visit was meant to showcase imperial authority. Instead, it set off a chain of events that would plunge the world into war. Waiting for them on the route was Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist and member of Young Bosnia, a revolutionary movement committed to Slavic independence. Princip was closely linked to the Black Hand, a shadowy Serbian nationalist organization with ties to elements of the Serbian military and government. The Black Hand had trained and armed a team of assassins, including Princip, with the goal of striking a blow against Austro-Hungarian imperialism. After a failed bombing earlier that day, the couple's motorcade took a wrong turn, and happened to pass by Princip, who was standing near a cafe. He seized the opportunity, stepped forward, and shot Franz Ferdinand and Sophie at point-blank range, killing both. The assassination shocked Europe. In Vienna, Austro-Hungarian leaders saw it not just as a personal attack, but as a direct challenge to the empire's authority. Although the Serbian government denied any official involvement, Austria-Hungary was determined to make an example of Serbia. Backed by Germany's blank check of unconditional support, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia on July 23, 1914, demanding extreme concessions, including allowing Austro-Hungarian officials to take part in the investigation within Serbia. While Serbia agreed to most of the conditions, it rejected some that infringed on its sovereignty.